TFB's Behind the Gun podcast is sponsored by Armscore. Visit armscore.com. We're also brought to you by Silencer Shop. How do you buy a silencer? That's easy. Just go to silencershop.com. With hundreds of kiosks at select dealers across the nation, Silencer Shop streamlines your silencer purchasing experience. You shop and let Silencer Shop handle the rest. Visit silencershop.com to get started today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to TFB's Behind the Gun podcast. I'm Pete, and I'll be your host. Today, we have Dave Matheny, owner of Silencer Shop. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, right off the bat, I want to thank you very much for your support. You guys are a big supporter of the podcast and what we do on the blog, so we really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you.
Oh, thank you.
We like to start these conversations out with like a question that is kind of off topic, and we started out the podcast with the question of, you know, the end of the world is upon us, and mind you, this was before COVID. What you have one gun you can pick to head out into that next. That next environment that's different than ours. What are you taking? And then added for you is, what are you suppressing it with?
You know, I tell you, I would probably take my current favorite hunting gun. It's light, it's relatively short, it's effective on everything here in Texas, and it's a 6.8 rifle, a 6.8 AR, just a fantastic gun. And I don't know if that's a non-typical response, but as far as a suppressor, I'd probably take it with a Rugged Radiant. That's probably my very favorite all around, lightweight, short, just a great hunting can.
And so why 6.8 over, let's say, 308 or even 5.56?
You know, as far as the 308 goes, you know, then you'd be into an AR-10 platform. And I tell you, I know people argue, yeah, there are some super light AR-10s around now. Still, it's a kind of a bigger, clunkier gun, and there's just no way around that, you know. Whereas the 6.8, you can get it into a platform that feels more like a traditional AR-15, like a 5.56, and yet it has way more capability when it comes to hunting. So, you know, shooting anything from, you know, white-tailed deer to hogs, that 6.8 is a gun that gives you a little bit of, I guess, leeway compared to the 5.56. So it's kind of the happy medium, right? It's the size of a 5.56, the portability of a 5.56, but easier to manage than a 308, in my opinion.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the reasons we asked the question is because it tells a lot about not only the person, but also like the environment you're in. So for where I'm up in the Northeast, it's a lot different from where you are down in Texas. So
oh yeah, that's true.
It tells a lot about where you're at, and the distances you have, and the creatures you're going to come across.
Our deer are the size of dogs, so they're not giant.
Well, tell me a little bit about Silencer Shop, and right off the bat, I'm going to ask you: are you guys a dealer or are you guys a distributor? And really, what's the difference for people that don't know?
We are a distributor, but you can't. But your average person off the street can buy directly from us. So really, the key is when you're buying off our website, part of that process is selecting a dealer, and the reality of behind the scenes is that dealer is acting as the dealer. We're acting as the distributor to the dealer. To the customer, I'm not sure that's really overly relevant, but to the dealers, it matters a lot. That's also why when you buy off our website, there are no transfer fees. So most of the time, you buy any gun, silencer, anything like that online, it's going to go to your local shop that's going to charge you for a silencer. It could easily be $50 to $100. With our system, that charge isn't there because we already have a relationship with the dealers.
How many dealers do you have in your network now?
We're right around 4,000.
Wow. And so when somebody goes to buy a silencer off of your site, they're basically buying directly from their dealer. and the fees are all controlled, and the pricing is controlled by their local dealer. Is that right?
That's right. That's why when you go through and we do our best to select a dealer that's kind of going to be the best option for most people. But any person can go and override browse pricing from local dealers based on distance, based on reviews. We try to make all that as easy as possible.
Yeah, and watching you guys really evolve over the years has been pretty remarkable, especially in growth. Can you tell me how you got started? I mean, you have a tech background. How did you get started? You know, owning a silencer distributor.
I know. It really was an accident. I come, like you said, from a tech background. I'm a computer programmer, and I'm the kind of computer programmer where you lock me in a closet and code comes out. I don't manage people or do anything fancy like that. I was always a coder. I got into a situation where, well, just to kind of give you some background, my middle son was born 100% deaf in his right ear. I've always kind of been into guns and shooting, and when I started taking him, my wife and I decided it was time to buy a silencer to protect his good ear. That was back in the 2007, 2008 time frame. So, the process went really, really poorly. Honestly, extremely poorly. I tried it again from another dealer. It went really just as bad. I won't go into details, but it did. And I started thinking, man, I'm gonna start helping people in the local area do transfers. And honestly, my first name idea for the shop was actually Hill Country Transfers. and and I would call people up and say, yeah, Hill Country Transfers, talking to the bank or talking to whoever. They're like, oh, do you transfer prisoners?
Oh boy.
So clearly that wasn't taken right. But by the time we launched, the name Silencer Shop was there, and it just exploded. I mean, the growth, even from month one, was beyond anything that I had ever expected.
So yeah, again, I'm trying to cater to people that maybe are just buying their first can or thinking about it or just new to the process. Explain like how the process was 15 years ago when you started out, like compared to if I'm starting out now and I just go to Silencer Shop, it might seem fairly easy, but what was it like back then?
I tell you, it is, even at the ATF, people don't remember, even though it hasn't been that long. If you were to have bought a silencer back in 2015, more than likely you would have just created a trust. It was super, super popular to create, quote, Quicken trusts, where you just go to Quicken online, create a trust for $22 and use that as your trust. Mm-hmm. And we would submit all the paperwork. You buy the silencer, we'd submit all the paperwork, but you didn't have to sign anything. There was no photo, no fingerprints. There was nothing. From a customer's point of view, we literally took care of all the paperwork, and they never even saw it until it got approved.
Wow.
Now, things changed dramatically in 2016. Now the process is pretty significantly more complex.
Yeah, we'll get into 41P and 41F, but explain real quick why people would use a trust to buy their suppressors.
Oh, the main reason people would use a trust back then is because if you didn't use a trust, you had to actually go to your local sheriff or police chief and get permission before you submitted your paperwork. So in order to avoid that permission step, people would get a trust, because a lot of sheriffs, they had the power to just say no. And in addition, there's kind of the hassle factor, right, of having to chase them down.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that people have almost forgotten these days, is that if you had a chief law enforcement officer that would not sign your Form 4s, you didn't have any other way to get an NFI item unless you could use an LLC or a trust, right?
That's right, exactly.
And so when in 2016, when 41F, ATF 41F came, they removed that part of the process, right? It was just now a notification.
That's right, exactly. So now, and for most of our customers, they don't even realize that notification is happening. It's all kind of behind the scenes. It's just something we take care of. But we do a notification for every single transfer. But it's just a notification now. It's not permission.
So yeah, if you're not familiar with either process, if I'm doing a Form 4 through my dealer that doesn't use your system, it's on me to find my local law enforcement officer and send that copy into them for notification. Whereas you guys do it all automatically when you place an order, right?
That's right. As a general rule, if you go through a more traditional, like if you're not using our system, you'll go in. They may give you some pointers on filling out the Form 4. They may not. They may just print out a blank form and hand it to you, and then they'll send you out the door to go track down your fingerprints, go get a passport photo made. You have to notify your chief law enforcement officer, and there are all these steps you have to do that, according to ATF's own numbers, takes 3.78 hours per
Jeez.
application. So it's a pretty detailed, involved process that's kind of dumped on the consumer in most cases.
Yeah, and it seems wildly inefficient most of the time. And I'd love to get it. Like, we're not going to point fingers because the whole system is crazy and inefficient, but there's no
Yep,
sense
it's a
in it.
mess. That's
Yeah.
right.
But you mentioned fingerprints and photographs. How do people do that with Silencer Shop? Like, they don't have to go to a drugstore to get their passport photo taken or go to the PD to get their fingerprints done, right?
That's right. Yeah. So basically, with our system, you buy either off our website or from any one of our dealers. And then immediately after the purchase, the first time you buy, you'll get what we call a kiosk code texted and emailed to you. You take that to any one of our kiosks, which is usually at the shop you're using. Scan that kiosk code there. It takes let's call it 5 to 10 minutes ish to put in your information, do your fingerprints, and then you use our mobile app to snap a photo, and then we take care of the rest. The second time you buy, we already have that information. So you buy the silencer once again from us or from the dealer. It really doesn't matter. And then the paperwork just gets magically done and submitted to the ATF. There's no interaction from the customer at that point, other than having to redo their photo once a year, because that's an ATF requirement, and we do track that and let them know once it's expired.
How difficult was it to introduce this novel system to a government organization that is used to dealing in the postal service and paper?
Luckily for us, the fingerprinting stuff has been very well defined by FBI. So we went down that road with FBI. The major portion of the time on the fingerprinting was actually to get our color multi-stage printers certified, which took about 6 months. It was a big process because they had never certified a multi-stage printer before. Not that anybody cares but us. But the bigger part of the problem with ATF was to get them to accept that digital signatures are legal. So to get them to accept that DocuSign works. And as far as ATF goes, that was it probably took 7, 8 months to get the right variances in place and have them accept that. But that they did come around, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they changed the form instructions the next time around, because they're starting to trust it.
That's good. I mean, for those who don't know, variances are what licensees apply for when they're doing something different out of the norm, right? Like
That's right,
the normal
exactly.
process. Is that right? Sorry, Dave.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yes, it is.
No. So you've been up and running for what, almost 15 years now? A little less.
Yeah,
than that?
we actually started in 2010, so I guess probably 11 years now.
And how many? You said you have a network of 4,000 or so dealers. How many kiosks you got out there?
We're pushing 2,000 kiosks. Now, kiosks, we're making them as fast as we can, but in the current environment, I think we're having the same problems as everybody, just getting materials.
So you're having the same kind of chip supply and circuitry.
That's right. Even the price of steel, it's like everything affects everybody who makes anything.
That's still a lot of kiosks out there. I was always curious, do you have any kiosks in dealers that are in NFA unfriendly states like say a state that doesn't allow suppressors, is there a kiosk there?
You know, I am not aware of any. What I have been trying to do though is to get one into the Capitol building in DC. I just think that would, I guess, send a message in some ways. We've been
Wow.
talking to our local congressman, and I think they actually might be on board with it. I think that would be awesome.
Where would it be placed? In his office, or would it
Yeah,
be in a jet?
yeah,
That's pretty
it just be in his office. But he couldn't. But nobody could buy a silencer there. But you could actually go in and put your fingerprints in and do your information if you wanted to do it. On
That's
Capitol Hill.
that's pretty cool. I like that. So how many employees do you have nowadays?
Where we just are right at the 60 employee mark.
And so I'm taking some staff questions as we go here. One is there a in this is probably a tough question since you base how many brands do you service through Silencer Shop?
You know, I tell you, I'm not even 100% sure I could tell you that. We
It's a
sell
lot.
all the major silencer brands. Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
not a garage brand, we probably carry it. So
So I'm asking. So the tough question is like staff favorites. Is there a universal staff favorite across Silencer Shop employees that either gets checked out a lot to go to the range for testing, or gets purchased a lot by your own staff?
you would think that we would all kind of lean towards the same, but it seems like everybody's got their own favorites, and it really does. It goes across the spectrum from Surefire to Silencer Co to Dead Air, Rugged. I mean, pretty much all of the major brands are somebody's favorite
Yeah,
for
right.
some reason, right?
And I'm real like, in being a tech person yourself, I'm super interested in the data behind some of your like the people that purchase through you. Like, do certain areas of the country focus more on rifle cans than they do rimfire cans, or like just these weird little like analytics that I'd love to see behind the curtain? Do you have any kind of um, anomalies you could share? Kind of weird stories that you could share?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything that would be, I guess, surprising in that sense. I will say, I think people all assume that Texas is the biggest state for silencer sales,
Mm.
but if you look per capita, Texas isn't really even close. So you get states like Georgia that just dominate the per capita numbers, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I think Texas wins at everything because there are just more people here. I don't
Yeah.
mean wins. I mean, we're always at the top of every list.
No, you're from Texas. You can say Texas wins all the time.
Yeah, there you go. I just realized I don't want to offend any non-Texans.
No, that's fine. All of us non-Texas Texans know how Texans are, so it's
Is that
fine.
right? Okay.
um, so even though you're a distributor, you still have a storefront where people can come in and touch and feel, right? Like they can come
Yep.
in and see stuff.
We we
Go
do,
ahead.
and it's once again, it's like every major brand. We've got a ton of silencers on display. People can buy there. The main difference is that you can't pick up there. When you buy from us, you really are buying from a dealer, even if it's in the store. So
Mm,
you may come in, check it out. Some guy may drive in from, 6 hours away in Texas, buy a silencer from us across the counter, and then when it gets approved, he'll pick up from his local dealer in his local town, right? Because that's who the transaction is going through.
and in Texas, is it correct? Like, you can actually ship to a Texas resident directly. Do you
Yeah,
guys do that?
we used to. So it's
Okay.
and really there are a couple things that the theory of that is great. And prior to 2016, the ATF allowed, I don't know, I don't want to get too technical, but they allowed email notifications to the local sheriff. That's part of the process. You have
Mm,
to notify the local sheriff, get back the certified mail green card, basically, and then wait like 10 days before you can mail the silencer. So in theory, it adds about 2 weeks. But the reality is the ATF, or sorry, the post office doesn't always send those green cards back. So we were stuck in a
mm.
position where we were sending them over and over and over. And the customer's getting frustrated and he got approved a month ago. Yeah, we just finally, once the ATF got rid of the email variances, we just kind of quit doing it.
Yeah.
It's just not worth the hassle.
Seems time intensive.
It's and then nobody wants to wait after they've waited 10 months. Nobody wants to wait another month.
No,
Right.
you want it right now.
That's right.
So, one of the most difficult parts, I think, of buying a suppressor is not being able to actually hear it or experience it for yourself. You can go and touch them and feel the weight and the mounting systems. How do you guys help people actually understand how that silencer will sound?
We've tried a lot of different ways. What we've, for the most part, settled on is videos with. We've got some very expensive sound metering equipment where we kind of go through and try to do comparisons. But the reality is, even that doesn't truly capture the difference. So it's a hard problem. I'm not sure anybody's truly solved it, how to compare them effectively.
I don't either. I think it's very tough to be able to, because the everything changes so much from, your clients, your customers' host weapon is going to be different from what you have to, their environment where they're shooting and the ammo they're using. There's so many variables there. It's like really hard to predict
It's
that
even
fun.
and it's even dumb stuff like you're at the range shooting and the humidity starts increasing and all of a sudden the numbers are off. So
Right.
stuff like that is just like you said, environmental stuff, the gun, the person. It really is hard to capture all that into a single number.
So, from your staff, when somebody brand new walks in the street and they're looking for a certain suppressor, like generic, I want a 308 or I want a rifle suppressor, how do they deal with that? With like somebody who's brand new and has no idea what to expect?
We usually try to take people through a series of kind of questions just to kind of try to narrow down what is going to be, at least give them, the goal is to give them two or three options that we feel like would be the right choices based on how they answer our questions, and then kind of let them choose based on their priority. Because a lot of time, there are a lot of people that they just want the cheapest. Other people want the best no matter what, right? Other people are kind of looking for that middle ground, or short, or light, or quietest. Everybody has different requirements, and it's just trying to hone in on that.
Yeah, I'd love to come and see like just on any given week the variety of customers you get, because I'm sure you get people that they're coming in there to buy their 30th can and know exactly what they want and probably can tell you guys what they like about the last one more than you know. Then you got people that probably have never picked up one before and need all the help they can get.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And then you also have the guy who calls in and he's got a specific can that he wants, and the sales guy is thinking in the back of his head, crap, that's not really the one you're going to be the happiest with. That's also a hard choice, but we tend to go towards if they already know what they want, just sell them that one. Because then they're mad at us if they're not happy, right? So it's a kind of a no-win situation.
Yeah, I think you picked the right one there. Like
Yeah.
you can't win like, and this is what happens to most of us, right? You get something in your head that you're lusting after for maybe a month or two. Like I'm going to get this one. There's no talking me out of whatever it was. I'm sure that's the same with some of your customers.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So, you guys, and stop me if you're not ready to talk, but are you guys moving into a new building at some point?
We are. Yeah, it's full blown. We purchased the property last year. Got it smack in the middle of COVID. We're in the process of, we got all our permits, and the construction is full blown underway. We're actually hoping to have our shipping team in there as early as November. Although there are a lot
Wow.
of factors that have to line up for that to happen. So hopefully that works.
Is it still in Austin, close by?
It is just north of Austin, exactly.
Okay, nice. And you're in a great place now, but what is it the new place going to offer that you don't have now?
It's what the problem we've always had is space. So this is going to expand us out. We'll have it's 26,000 square feet. We've got a 6,000 square foot warehouse and an 8,000 square foot vault. It's on 5 acres, right on a major highway. So we're pretty excited about it. It'll give us a little bit of room to grow.
That's awesome. So, a lot of times there's a lot of people that buy from you guys. And one of the, maybe it's a frustration that they come across is it seems like everything I want is out of stock. And can you explain a little bit about how like that supply chain goes and that manufacturers are making as much as possible to get you as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and that
Yeah.
you're just as frustrated as everybody else?
Yeah, and that's really true. I feel like this industry, it's been on a pretty massive upswing since 2017. So, and it's one of those things where every month is a double-digit percentage increase over the month before, and
Wow.
manufacturers have just struggled to keep up with that growth, right? I mean, it's just the machines required, the labor required. I will say the one manufacturer that really did capitalize on all this is probably Dead Air. They've kind of really stepped up, but everybody else is not far behind. So people are finally getting their capacity online, and I think that inventory problem hopefully will start resolving itself soon.
I imagine you could probably sell every suppressor that comes in your door. Like if you were to say magically tomorrow your inventory increased threefold, you'd probably not have no problem moving those.
Yeah, that's really true. Actually, it's a crazy time now. This market does go in waves, and we're fully aware of that. So right now we're in this kind of a long-term upswing, but there will be another downturn. So it's for us, it's kind of trying to manage that as well, right?
Yep. Um, we don't do politics or anything like that at TFB, which is I love that because it opens up so many more conversations. But in general, in a nonpartisan way, do you ever see a time where suppressors are um, regulated less, or maybe not even at all?
I do think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen soon. In my personal, the way I think that we're probably 10 to 15 years away from that. And the reason I think it's about that far out is because we have to get to more of a critical mass of actual suppressor owners before we can deregulate silencers to some extent. Right now, there just aren't enough people who understand them and not enough people who own them to put pressure on politicians. The politicians, except for the ones that just in their own right are passionate about this topic, the rest of them don't care. And
Right.
it's just not enough, right? We need more people to be suppressor owners and to care about the topic before they become deregulated.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like if you're a shooter in any kind of shape or form, until you actually pull the trigger on a suppressed gun, you don't really understand the importance or the significance of owning one. And then take it another step further, you don't understand the hoops that everybody has to jump through to get there
That's right.
until you actually do it yourself.
Yeah.
So how do we grow those numbers? How do we do this? Because
Yeah.
it needs to happen.
I think that the first thing, and this is what we focus the most effort on, and I, without getting into politics, we sink a significant amount of money into trying to improve ATF processes. If we can get to a world where somebody submits a form 4 to buy a suppressor, and that form 4 gets approved consistently in, let's call it, 2 weeks, man, this market would explode if people could count on that 2 week number. 2 weeks
Mm,
it's just not too long. Over the counter would be fantastic. Well, even 30 days would be awesome if it
oh
were a
gosh, yeah.
consistent number, right? That people could count on. The market would just explode, and I think that growth would propel us into the deregulation phase.
Yeah, I have to assume that one of the biggest complaints that your customers say is the weight, right?
Oh
The
yeah,
weight
and
to pick.
And it's not just the length of the wait, it's the indeterministic nature of the wait. So you just don't know when you buy. It could be 6 months, it could be a year. That's kind of hard to swallow at the beginning of the process.
And again, no politics, but what's the prevention of being able to like put in some sort of regulatory measure that says, all Form 4s have to be approved within blank number of days? Is that something that would have to be signed into law, or that something that ATF could do on their own?
No, it would have to be signed into law, but the real problem, and those are the types of laws we see all the time that we actually push back against. There does need to be a time limit, but I think that's the wrong way to do it. Because in the current environment, let's say Congress were to pass a law that said you have to approve it within, let's call it 90 days.
Okay.
The way ATF would deal with that is they would get to that 90-day mark, and if they haven't processed you yet, they would just disapprove you and make you start over. And then not only would you have a indeterministic wait, you would have almost a lottery effect on, am I going to get approved this time? And people would be trying over and over and over. It'd be like applying for an elk tag in Wyoming.
Gotcha. I didn't realize that they would just get to that period and just disapprove and say start over.
Yeah, and every law that's been proposed, it's actually written to leave that option open for ATF, because you have to keep in mind this, as much as it sucks, NFA is a registry. So ATF's not going to let somebody take possession of something unless the registry has been updated, right? And they'll just disapprove to keep the registry right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it does anyway.
Yeah, it really, really is. Now, I think a time limit will work, but I think the only way a time limit works is if the technology is in place at ATF first to make that time limit consistently possible, right? So
yeah, it's making a lot more sense now why you've been helping them get the tools. Like I'm thinking the barcode that came out a few years ago to be able to speed things up. You're helping them get the tools they need to process forms quicker, correct?
That's right. That is absolutely our objective. Let's get them down to where they can consistently approve forms in 2 weeks, then put a 90-day limit in place. Because if they go over the 90-day limit at that point, or 30-day limit, you pick one, it doesn't even matter. If they go over the limit at that point, they were already in the mood to hose people, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then the hope is we get people approved faster. We get suppressors in the hands of shooters faster. You grow to that breaking point limit where you get this capacity for understanding the NFA process and suppressors. And then hopefully, years later, we can get to the point where we have that deregulation talk, right?
Yep, that's absolutely where I think we need to go. The reality is buying a silencer should be like buying a flashlight. It's an accessory. It's not a weapon any more than a baseball bat's a weapon, right?
Right. That's one of the things I try to explain too, is that it by itself cannot shoot a bullet at all. Like there's no way. So the fact that it's regulated makes to me no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
So tell me a little bit about anything that you can about what we're going to see, not specifics. Obviously you can't talk about things coming out, but like in general, how's the industry moving in the next 3-6 months, maybe over 2022?
There are some big changes. We're already kind of laying the groundwork. Anybody who pays attention to our site has already seen our customer portal. We just pushed out a brand new customer portal, which is a pretty big leap forward, but it also helps us lay the groundwork for future changes we're working on. The dealer portal is being updated within the next couple of weeks. We already have beta testing going on with that. We'll have a new kiosk, hopefully to simplify the fingerprinting process is one part that I feel like the self-guided portion of the fingerprinting could really use some work, in my opinion. There's the mobile app. I want to bring our mobile app to be more in line with the rest of our platform, not just be a tool to take pictures. We have a lot of software coming, and we've we've got the resources, and we're really, really focused on updating the entire platform.
And this brings us back to your very heavy tech background. I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of and maybe it still is this way, but a lot of the initial programming was done by you on a lot of these kiosks and a lot of the app and the process.
Yeah, that kiosk, sheesh, it was about 8 months. I didn't take a single day off. My wife's like, I'm surprised she didn't divorce me. It was like no days off for 8 months. I was working like 70 hours straight, sleeping in the shop. It's
Wow.
like it was the craziest crunch mode of my life to get that thing out. And everything prior to just a couple of years ago, I had written myself. Now we've got a development team, and they're bringing in processes. It's not just me doing what I want, and I'm having to adapt to that too, right? But it's actually going really well.
So we missed NRA this year. I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to be at SHOT. NRA, usually you have kiosks set up so that you could, sorry, this is the annual meeting, obviously,
Yeah.
for people listening. You have kiosks set up so people can go and, do their fingerprints and photos. How big of an impact was it that NRA didn't happen this year? And what are you thinking about SHOT?
I was disappointed with NRA, but as far as impact, I'm not sure it had a huge impact. I really do hope that SHOT happens. We've got some pretty big plans for SHOT. We're excited for it, but it's honestly, I keep hearing both ways. Like, you talk to the guys at NSSF and 100% sure it's going to happen, but then of course there are rumors throughout the industry that it won't. I don't know. I hope it does.
I hope so too. It seems like it's been forever since the last one.
I know.
You guys do awesome work. There's nobody that makes it easier than you guys, I think, when it comes to buying a suppressor. And you'd really just got to experience it yourself. I'd say this if you guys weren't a sponsor of the podcast. It's like so simple to go on, and once you got your fingerprints and photos in there, it's even easier. So thank you. Keep up the good work when it comes to that stuff.
Man, seriously, thanks for having me on. And I just want to throw out there too that we appreciate everything that you're doing, because I feel like you're a key part of, getting the message out and making sure people kind of understand what's really going on, if that makes sense. We do appreciate everything you're doing.
Oh, no. When I talk to your team there, I tell them that, it's very easy to do stuff that you have a passion for. I think you probably know that firsthand more than most, that if you love something and you like it, it's easy to write about it or review something or talk about it in a way that's, helpful to people.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get down and see you guys. Hopefully I'll see you at SHOT. And Dave, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me, Pete. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
How do you buy a silencer? That's easy. Just go to silencershop.com. With hundreds of kiosks at select dealers across the nation, Silencer Shop streamlines your silencer purchasing experience. You shop and let Silencer Shop handle the rest. Visit silencershop.com to get started today. TFB's Behind the Gun podcast is also sponsored by Armscore. As the world's largest manufacturer of 1911s, Armscore and Rock Island Armory know a thing or two about firearms and ammunition. Affordable, reliable, dependable. Get yours. Visit armscore.com.